Hi, this is Sarah. In this lecture, we will discuss the cataract surgery and dry eye disease. While research, clinical, and technological developments tend to be focused on the prevention of sight-threatening complications, it is important that they do not neglect the avoidance and minimization of non-sight-threatening adverse events, as these can significantly impact on patients' quality of life. Such an example is dry eye disease. The learning goals of the present course are to realize how common is dry eye disease, to understand why cataract surgery contributes to dry eye disease, to acknowledge that dry eye disease influences preoperative measurements and the vision after the surgery, and finally, to learn the steps that will reduce the risk of dry eye related to cataract surgery. Why do we need to worry about dry eye disease in a patient who is about to proceed to cataract surgery? Well, these diseases are both common in the elderly. They are somehow connected. Cataract surgery can create dry eye, and on the other hand, dry eye can affect the patient's vision to the point that they will consider the operation unsuccessful. Furthermore, it is now known that corneal surface disease can create a challenge in intraocular lens selection. Finally, we should be concerned because when a patient's quality of vision is impaired, their overall quality of life is significantly impacted, which can even lead to depression. The frequency of dry eye after cataract surgery is not very clear. Some studies mentioned that the clinical symptoms of dry eye were reported in 9% of the patients 4 weeks after the surgery, while other clinical series documented such problems in 31% during the same period. Now, when it comes to the signs of dry eye in a prospective study of 100 patients, Das-Gupta and Gupta found that 12 weeks after cataract surgery, 100% of the patients showed abnormalities in tear breakup time, Schirmer 1 tests, and dry eye symptomatology. Another study, again prospective by Choi, indicated that in 3 months, 27% of patients experienced persistent symptoms of dryness, based on an ocular surface disease index questionnaire. It's worth mentioning that the published evidence showed inconsistencies, probably due to discordance between dry eye symptoms and signs, as well as the variability of current dry eye disease assessment and methodologies. But let's see what happens with the duration of dry eye disease after the cataract surgery. In a prospective study of 86 patients, Iglesias reported that 32% experienced symptoms of dry eye disease up to 6 months after the surgery. However, in 2 other studies, one prospective with 50 patients and one retrospective with 96 patients, the signs and symptoms of dry eye disease appeared to return to preoperative levels in 3 months. In our personal experience, the symptoms tend to persist for many months or even years after surgery. However, it is believed that this is not directly related to the cataract surgery itself, but rather that the patient already had dry eye disease. As mentioned, corneal surface disease can further deteriorate if the patient had dry eye disease preoperatively. In a prospective study of 120 patients presenting with cataracts reported that 80% had at least one abnormal test indicative of ocular surface disease prior to surgery. Similar results seem to be coming up in another multicenter prospective study of 136 patients, which revealed that 77 of the patients had positive corneal staining and 63% had tear breakup time of less than 5 seconds prior to cataract surgery. FACO study in 2017 revealed how undiagnosed and undertreated is dry eye because it showed that even though most dry eye patients were asymptomatic, 50% of those had signs of ocular surface disease in fluorescent stain, and as many as 87% of those developed symptoms after cataract surgery. It is now known that numerous potential etiologies are connected with dry eye disease, and many cases may be multifactorial. These include systemic diseases. A study of 119 patients by Signy reported postoperative discomfort in 34%, 6 months post-surgery, with greater prevalence in women and those with autoimmune diseases, ocular chronic pain syndrome, use of antihistamine, anti-reflux, anti-insomnia, anxiety-related, and antidepressant medication. Finally, we shouldn't omit to mention that the manifest symptomatology seems to be affected by many factors, and it is more important than the clinical measurements of the dry eye disease. Moreover, it is very important to report that any postoperative discomfort in the eyes could be related with any other anterior segment disease like blepharitis, keratitis, or iritis. Let's now study the pathophysiology of intraoperative factors in cataract surgery contributing to ocular surface disease. Disruption in tear homeostasis is a key component in the pathogenesis of dry disease. The incisional damage of the corneal nerves in cataract surgery has been known for many decades. Wounds during the surgery, even with small or so-called micro-incision techniques, where the incision widths are typically less than 2 mm, can disrupt radial stromal nerves at the limbus and corneal periphery, resulting in loss of sensation. This sensory loss may take months to return to normal, and it is likely to upset tear film homeostasis while compromised. But it seems it's not only the full-thickness incisions, but perhaps any partial thickness wound to address astigmatism like astigmatic, keratotomies, and limbal relaxing incisions due to potential corneal nerve damage. On the other hand, ocular surface trauma is met, and corneal epithelium, conjunctival epithelium, and goblet cells are injured with the use of eye drops during the surgery. These drops include the povidone iodine, which is important in reducing the risk of postoperative endophthalmitis. Similar changes have been noticed with topical anesthetics and drops to dilate the pupil, possibly due to the preservatives used within these medications. Hence, the type and volume of such drops should be carefully considered, especially in the eyes with pre-existing dry eye disease. The ocular surface is also at risk from cycles of repeated drying, followed by irrigation to maintain surgical and optical clarity. There are studies to support that the use of hydroxypropylmethylcellulose 2% induces better ocular surface health rather than the continuous use of BSS. On the other hand, the toxic effect of the operating microscope light on the ocular surface has been demonstrated, and in vivo study examining the effects of the light on rabbit eyes demonstrated the damage to corneal and conjunctival epithelial cells, reduced aqueous tear production and a reduction in goblet cell density. An in vitro study on porcine conjunctival cells showed that microscope light exposure resulted in fibroblast cell damage and delayed wound healing. We are uncertain to what degree phototoxicity can affect the human eye. However, it is suggested that it is sensible to limit intraoperative light exposure as much as possible by reducing the light and limiting the time exposure to that light. Finally, surgical trauma from speculum should be avoided. Now, when it comes to femtosecond laser-assisted cataract surgery, there appear to be limited studies suggesting a slightly greater propensity to cause dry eye disease compared to traditional cataract surgery. Let's now investigate the dry eye consequences to cataract surgery. The tear film, which serves as the corneal interface, is the most powerful refractive surface of the eye. Any abnormality in the tear film can affect vision and can also lead to unexpected refractive outcomes. Intraocular lens power selection methods still depend on the highly accurate preoperative measurements, which are unique and specific to each patient. To evaluate the effects of pretreatment for dry eye disease on the occurrence of intraocular lens power calculation, a study was presented by Jean Su and their colleagues in 2021, in which 100 patients were investigated. 50 of those were treated preoperatively with topical 0.5% lotoprednol etabinate and 0.05% cyclosporin A for 2 weeks before cataract surgery and were compared with the non-pretreatment group. Ocular biometry was performed on all groups within 2 days before surgery. The mean predictor error, mean absolute error, and proportions of refractive surprise were compared within the 2 groups 1 month after the surgery. The results showed that the pretreatment of dry eye disease was associated with the reduction of postoperative refractive surprises in elderly people, males, and a normal range of axial length. Therefore, the accuracy of intraocular lens power selection can be improved by actively treating ocular surface disease before cataract surgery. An impaired ocular surface might also adversely affect preoperatively planning, including intraocular lens calculations, toric intraocular lens axis and magnitude estimates, keratometry and topography measurements, and of course, increased surgical difficulty. This is especially imperative in patients receiving multifocal intraocular lenses. Studies have shown dry eye disease to be a significant contributory factor in patient dissatisfaction following the surgery. In a retrospective review of 50 patients, it was shown that reduced visual performance was attributed to dry eye disease in 35% of the patients. To emphasize the importance of dry eye disease in premium cataract surgery, we will mention the paradox of intraocular lens selection, as stated by Heel et al. In 2017. Even if one individual component in the process of intraocular lens calculations is somehow perfected, outcomes for a series of patients are not significantly affected. However, if one part is incorrect for that individual patient, a refractive miss is guaranteed, with potentially devastating consequences for that specific patient. We hope we have successfully conveyed the importance of diagnosing and treating ocular surface disease prior to surgery. Additionally, aggressive preoperative dry eye management, particularly in high-risk patients, can help prevent further exacerbations. As we mentioned earlier, diagnosing and managing dry eye disease can be challenging due to discrepancies between the symptoms and clinical signs, as well as the limitations of current assessment methods. A recent questionnaire analysis on dry eye in cataract and refractive surgery conducted by the American Society of Cataract and Refractive Surgery indicated that despite clinicians acknowledging the importance of dry eye management prior to cataract surgery, there was a wide variety in treatment practices and clinical opinions. The American Society of Cataract and Refractive Surgery Committee, therefore, devised a preoperative screening algorithm, including a new preoperative screening questionnaire SPEED 2. Based on Johnson & Johnson Vision. It is an objective, non-invasive, point-of-care clinical diagnostic test of tear osmolarity, tear film matrix, metalloproteinase 9 levels. It is simple and can be incorporated in practice workflow, allowing an appropriate management and adequate patient counseling of potential problems due to corneal surface disease, hopefully improving the postoperative outcomes and the patient satisfactory. From the preoperative assessment and treatment, we should not omit anterior and posterior blepharitis. Treatment regimes include regular use of warm compressors, lid hygiene treatment of Demodex, as well as administration of systemic tetracycline antibiotics and topical azithromycin. In the discussion of the treatment of dry eye disease, lubricant eye drops should be used depending on the extent of the signs and symptoms. If ocular surface disease is recognized, it is advisable to use anti-inflammatories and topical cyclosporin at least 2 to 3 weeks preoperatively. Let's come to the intraoperative steps to reduce the risks. First of all, the surgeon should limit the incisional damage by microincisional surgery. Consider avoiding astigmatic keratotomies in pre-existing disease. In order to limit the drop exposure, avoid the excessive use of any type of drops, including anesthetic application and povidone iodine 5%. Care also should be taken with the preoperative use of topical nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory medications. Finally, when possible, we should use preservative-free drops. The use of an ophthalmic viscosurgical device is also an excellent method to avoid continuous irrigation. We could limit phototoxicity in 2 ways. First of all, reduce the time whenever possible. And also dim the microscope illumination as much as you can. This is an effective way to minimize iatrogenic dry eye disease. Finally, the cataract surgeon should be mindful to limit surgical trauma by carefully using the speculum, avoiding epithelial trauma, and minimizing the use of forceps to hold the eye. Care should be taken to reduce the iatrogenic dry eye disease postoperatively, and that again includes the assessment of dry eye and the avoiding of excessive use of drug regimes. As part of the standard care, patients are given courses of topical steroids, occasionally non-steroidal anti-inflammatory and antibiotic drops for about a month. The use of preservative-free eye drop regimens has been shown to be beneficial in various trials. While it may increase costs and sometimes cause inconvenience for patients, it can help limit dry eye, allowing for the cessation of combined antibiotic steroid drops after about a week to 10 days, and enable the use of only steroid drops thereafter. Occasionally, an overnight eye treatment could be helpful. Additional measures include managing blepharitis, using topical cyclosporin, and, if the situation does not improve with the above treatments, considering punctal plugs as an alternative to enhance the patient's symptoms and signs. On the next 2 slides, you can find a few references for further reading. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this presentation on cataract surgery and dry eye disease, and please don't forget to run the self-evaluation tests of the lecture.